Welcome to the Reverse Mullet Healthcare Podcast from BP2 Health. Today we're playing Casey Kasem with a countdown of 2023 in healthcare and what that means going into 2024. But first, who are we? Why are we here? Why do we name our show the Reverse Mullet Healthcare Podcast?
Well, because we want to be relevant, informative, and creative, but we also want to be entertaining and have some fun. So it's party in the front, business in the back. It's like a mullet, only reversed.
I'm Ellen Brown.
I'm Justin Politi.
And I'm Dave Pavlik. We are passionate, innovative, and collaborative, and are committed to solving our industry's most important issues together with our clients. We have combined 90 years of experience.
Makes us sound so old.
Yes, it does. In each episode, we will dig into a hot healthcare topic and maybe dig into each other a little
But not me. Be really gentle on me.
So what's this Casey Kasem, coast to coast?
Yes.
That's it.
Casey Coast. And would you say Rick
Rick
D's?
D's in the weekly top 40.
But Casey Kasem had the most welcoming voice.
Yes,
He did.
and especially the long distance dedication. That was so sweet.
Right.
But it was like this very heartfelt, you felt very loved on the radio when you were listening to him.
So the song I was thinking of, Love Lift Us Up Where We Belong, that was Joe Cocker. And anyway, I'm not going to sing it.
How was y'all's?
But I could see a long distance dedication coming out.
Okay.
All right.
How was
Anyway.
y'all's Thanksgiving?
Is that what we're going to do? We're going to do. So you sent us a text. Because I texted you all over Thanksgiving with my family. We were at Disney. One day we didn't do Disney things. We were in the car.
This or that.
And we were playing this or that thanks to Justin. And I did, from one of our previous episodes, I did the Cheetos versus Goldfish as the starting.
Cheez-Its.
And I didn't ask you today what your choice
Cheez-Its
was.
versus
What did I say?
Cheetos.
Oh, Cheeto, yes. So Cheez-Its versus Goldfish. And it just took off like wildfire in the car between my parents and the kids and me and my husband. And then I started texting you. And then you all started throwing questions in and answering questions. And it was so fun to me because I felt like we were having like a BP2 retreat remotely and you all participating in the this or that. But you then shared with us that in that whole text chain, you were like, I've got a story for you all.
For Thanksgiving.
For Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So,
And then you wouldn't tell us the story.
well, everyone says, no, for the podcast. All right. So, so we woke up on Thanksgiving and I decided that I bought the turkey in advance and everything thought out, but I was going to brine the turkey, right? Got a brine.
I don't even know what that is, but.
Well, it means basically putting it in a salt water type solution.
Okay.
All right. So, the first thing started early in the morning. I opened up the refrigerator and this big tray of blueberries came falling out and went everywhere. So I'm getting ready to make the brine and the blueberries.
There's the blueberry incident first.
Yes. So I'm crawling all over the floor trying to get blueberries. And I'm swearing at Will because I'm convinced it was him that left the thing. So anyway, I start off in this not very good mood. But I've got the whole list of ingredients for the brine and a cooler in the garage where I would put the turkey into. So I started getting everything, the list of stuff together. It was oranges, there was cider, there was salt, all the stuff, right? And I start pouring it into the
cooler?
Into the cooler. Mm-hmm. And includes brown sugar.
Wait, was the little thing at the bottom of the cooler open?
Nope.
No.
Not open. We got everything into the cooler and then put the turkey in. And then I read that you needed to boil said solution. And so Shan and I we took the turkey out. It's clumped in all this stuff. And she's like, why the hell didn't you read further down on the list? I'm like, I just skipped over to the end where...
You soak it in a
what
bowl.
guys do.
It was pool. She's like, none of this stuff was ever going to get absorbed.
You're lucky I read any of the instructions.
Yeah. So anyway,
So was it Shan that actually figured out the fact that it needed to be boiled? Because she's probably looking at it saying, how does the brown sugar
dissolve? And
this whole thing just seems ill-fated.
She's looking at me like, you're a smart person, but this is stupid. There's nothing at all. So anyway, we rinsed the turkey. We went through the whole process all over again, and it added on way too much to the time. But the funny part was that, basically I was gonna, if not for Shan, I would have had this clumped up brine, and God knows what happened with the turkey.
How about you? Any
good stories?
Yeah.
This year? No, we were boring. We did Disney with my parents, and then from there we flew up to Baltimore to see the other side of the family. We went to a restaurant, so there was it was really simple. Although my favorite Thanksgiving mishap on the turkey front was probably 30 years ago. I want to say maybe 25, somewhere between 25 and 30 years ago. It was the first year Brian and I had our own home, and I was super excited to host Thanksgiving. And I borrowed one of those, I don't even know what it's called now, but it's sort of like a extra oven of sorts. It's not a slow cooker, but it's kind of that idea.
Okay.
Now air fryers have taken over,
Yep.
so I don't really know what it was called. I'm sure people remember, but it reminded me of a crock pot, but it was an oven. And
Was it an easy bake oven?
no, I had one of those as a kid, and I couldn't have loved anything more than the easy. I loved the easy bake oven because I love chocolate cake. But
And you can make shrinky dinks in the easy bake
you
oven.
can.
Yes, you can.
What do you mean are shrinky dinks?
Right, there are characters that you cut out of a certain size, and then you put them in the oven, and they shrinky dinks. Yep.
And become shrinky dinks.
But the only thing heating up a easy bake oven is a light bulb, right?
Yes. Well,
yes,
so this
something to
okay.
that effect.
Back to the turkey. I put the turkey in this said device, and the rookie mistake when you're cooking, I just left it there thinking everything was fine, and then about 45 minutes. Again, why I would wait until this point? 45 minutes before everyone comes over, I'm like, oh, let me check on the turkey. Hadn't even started to cook.
Yeah.
I was just beside myself because I had all these side dishes that I was doing, and called my mom. I go down into the basement and I'm like, Mommy, what do I do? And that was the year I learned to make very good use of my oven. So I use the microwave for things, and then I put the thing in the, I took stuff out of the oven and started microwaving them to cook them, and then put them back in the top shelf. It was, and from that day forward, I became really good at moving things throughout the oven really effectively to keep things cooking, lots of things at once. And then secondly, I always have had a double oven since that point because I just
lesson learned.
was like, I can't. This isn't going to work.
Doing the turkey's stressful. It is.
How about
I don't
you?
care.
Pretty low key. Went to my sister-in-law's, and was a small crowd. One of her kids, one of my nephews, had COVID, and so there was a question of, are we even going to go? But they banished him to the basement, and everybody was testing negative. So we had Thanksgiving
How
dinner.
far we've come, right?
We had Thanksgiving dinner with him on the FaceTime on the phone.
Oh.
And
he was in the basement.
He was in the basement, and we were taking turns, take him in a plate, open the basement door, put it like he's in prison.
Yeah.
Put the plate down, close the door.
awesome.
He'd come up and grab it.
I was sick. I probably had COVID for all I know. I never get sick. It's been like 2 years since I've been sick. You
It's
guys
the
know
airport.
that.
It's like
Oh, I
traveling
rode
to
in the Bright
airport.
Line. That was it. We rode for the first time on it's the first high-speed train in North America in forever, I think ever. And it's now in South Florida, and we rode it from West Palm to Orlando. It was a big deal.
Took 35 seconds.
And I felt like, I was in like a germ pool because it's just a train car of people.
Yeah, between that and the airport, it's gross. Everything's
it.
gross.
Yeah. So
Okay, so before we jump into the 2023 Casey Kasem wrap-up, we have a sponsor. Our friends over at Incline Actuarial Group. They are not a one-size-fits-all approach with Incline. Their actuaries have a multidisciplinary background across healthcare with experience in Medicaid rate setting, pricing for risk-bearing providers, Medicare ACO analytics, risk adjustment, and reserving. And they don't just check the box by repeating the same analytical approach. They strive to find creative solutions that are custom-tailored for the problem. Their actuaries work as an affordable staff extension for small businesses. They also specialize in serving government agencies to support public sector healthcare. No matter the size of the engagement, their actuaries work with clients in a transparent and efficient manner that highlights areas of risk and doesn't overproduce the analysis that is requested. And you can find them on www.inclineag.com. That's Incline Actuarial Group.
All right. So Casey Kasem, right? We're going to do the...
I wish you could sing it. Maybe they'll find it for the...
Casey's Coast to Coast.
There you go. Thank you. You met my needs. I will leave now.
We'll probably get a cease and desist copyrighted.
Between that and the Coke thing that we've been doing recently. The year in review 2023. Once again, we're going to jump into the Wayback Machine, although we're not going to have to go very far.
Just a few months.
Just a few months. In reviewing everything that's going on in the industry, I got a little depressed, I got to be honest.
You tend to be half full anyways.
No, you're half full.
I'm sorry, half empty. See, I can't even say that because that's not
I didn't see a lot of green shoots popping up out of the soil for next year. But I need Susie Sunshine.
I wore my green dress. Yes, I am your green shoot of hope.
Yes. So I need Susie Sunshine to lift my spirits and look in the
yellow
positive.
Wristband of sunshine. Here I am.
Right. So with that, why don't we get started? So I'll kick it off. 2023 was the year of inflation. We've heard everything about inflation, and
I think there's a couple of generations of people alive that didn't experience inflation until the last couple of years.
Yeah, and for us, lucky enough, like we were on a trajectory for the longest period of time. I mean, healthcare was always, significantly higher than the rest of the economy, right? But in 2023, so if we're to go back in January, we're running the economy as a whole is running an inflation rate of 6.4%, coming down from 9.1 in June of 2022. So we're moving in the right direction when it comes to the lowering of of overall inflation rate.
And the feds did not increase the rate again recently, which
they
is good.
didn't. But do either of you know what the target Fed inflation rate is for the economy?
Oh, it's like some super low number.
2%. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, we're still like way. I mean, if the Fed had no political piece, we would be seeing that rate go up.
Yeah. So, but interestingly enough, healthcare has been trending lower than the overall inflation. So in July of 2023, actually, as of July of 2023, the healthcare component of the CPI has gone negative. So
That's just crazy.
We're now in a deflationary environment when it comes to healthcare. Not the overall economy, that's still running a little bit higher. But to say it's unusual that healthcare is
I don't know the last time that's happened.
No,
deflating.
And as we've talked about,
lower than the overall economy itself.
And as we talked last time, it's like we're Benjamin Franklin in healthcare. So if we don't know about it, then maybe it's never happened. I'm kidding, of course.
No, but this, there's a lot of different speculation around what might happen next year given this kind of trajectory downward, because we're going to go into it in a minute, Dave, the workforce shortages and layoffs.
You're taking his thunder. You're stealing his thunder.
Well, they play into one another, so now I'm going to
pass it to you.
Ping pong it over to you.
Yeah, the healthcare workforce is at an inflection point, right? The number of personnel needed to take care of the population is just as they're aging, it's just not there. It's estimated that by 2025 there could be a deficit of 200,000 to 450,000.
Mind blowing.
A deficit,
right?
Of nurses.
Of nurses.
Yeah, in the country. Twiggy better get ready to step in because that's a scary thought for anyone that gets admitted to the hospital.
Although I got to tell you, based on my mom's experience in January, half of the staff that did come, Twiggy probably would have been more engaged.
Yeah, right.
And
I don't blame them.
Right.
Believe me.
But
in my own experience, they're still getting the job done, but they're overworked and they're burning out.
Yeah.
And some of them are leaving, some of them are getting laid off, whatever the case may be. But
your wife is in HR in healthcare,
right?
So I mean,
so I hear about these things,
and
she's constantly, whenever she runs into somebody, I say, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to nursing school." She says, "Yes, nursing school. Where do you live? Where are you going to graduate? Come to Inova."
Yeah.
So
and Shan was a nurse for years, and she couldn't do it anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
She got burned out. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. They're being overworked.
Yep.
Being asked to do
Bad shifts,
way too much.
There's a lot of...
we talked about in our last episode with Dr. Carol Pittman, same thing with physicians. They're getting burned out. Mm-hmm. They're seeing too many patients. Some parts of the country, there's a shortage of physicians as well. But the American Hospital Association reported that contract labor expenses have increased by at least 258% between 2019 and 2022.
Whew.
I know, staggering number.
So I'll just pause there for a second, because the last thing is, hey, we're now moved into a deflationary environment within.
Right? I was just thinking that.
Right.
My little brain.
But wages are going up for contract labor.
So how?
To this.
I can't wrap my head around this.
So
the deflationary piece, along with this increase in labor costs, contract labor.
So what's happening is, and you also have layoffs that are happening within the administrative components of the healthcare sector, right? So you're ramping up, and the costs for labor for nurses is skyrocketing contract labor, right? But you're eliminating a lot of administrative positions alongside.
Gotcha.
So that's
pulling the costs out.
And those are, those salaries are the
big salaries.
The big salaries. So
sadly,
I mean,
right?
The average wage paid to an individual contract healthcare employee is 57%. Has gone up by 57%. And while the nursing shortage increases, so do the layoffs. It's like you were saying.
Yep.
It's kind of are they robbing Peter to pay Paul? Are they cutting
their margins are compressing,
right, in order to cover the increased costs of the other labor? So they're trying to balance that out. Now what happens? The administrative folks are overworked, right?
Or gone.
Yeah.
Gone altogether. Like, you're going to have a much smaller, leaner administrative staff going forward.
Yet the tasks have not changed, and the technology has not improved. So
another statistic here, just in the first 5 months of 2023, the healthcare sector, including healthcare institutions, healthcare product manufacturers, et cetera, the industry overall announced over 33,000 layoffs, which is an 80% increase from the prior year, 2022.
Right. So
just a squeeze.
Yeah. And so
there's
not
enough dollars.
Yep. And so we're actually seeing it play out. Well, we saw it in 2023, and so this again,
just
not
continues.
green shoots.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we are kind of talking about depressing things of 2023.
You're going to cheer us up?
Okay.
Yes.
No, I'm not.
Oh, shoot.
So I'm going to talk about unicorn failures. Every year, so I've decided that we're just going to have the class of 2023. And then next year when we do this, we'll have a class of 2024.
All right.
So and it is history repeating itself, right? And I think every year we see the implosion of these highly beloved, just super, everybody gets behind, it's like, oh, this new shiny object. Right now it's AI. We talked about this. This is like the shiny object of 2023 that's going to be very shiny into 2024. That's not going anywhere. But, last year, the unicorn failures were Bright Health, Oscar, right? They really came to the forefront. This great white knight of the insurtechs.
Those are the unicorns you're speaking of. Okay.
Correct. Sorry, I did not tee that up properly.
It's okay, I get it.
But yes, the unicorns last year that really failed were Oscar and Bright Health, the insurtechs. They're amongst others, but and those they still are there, and it's still a problem. I mean, you've still got Bright Health living under this fear of being delisted by the New York Stock Exchange. That's not changing. And then the other thing is, when health insurance companies start to flail, it's not until the next year or the year after that the real fallout happens into the markets, right? Like, they flail and then they say, okay, starting next year, I'm going to pull out of the fall. So there are hundreds of thousands of people that suddenly lost their affordable health care as a result of those insurtechs having to pull out of markets because they were so unprofitable in all these markets. And, it just goes back to the inherent disconnect of VC and PE, venture capital and private equity, the expectations of success of their funded organizations, right? In contrast to the reality of the healthcare market. They're not aligned. Right. It's just, there are so many dynamics to the healthcare industry that are just in complete misalignment with expectations that VC Revenue. And PE and it's just the way it is. So there are still plenty of your unicorns running around, but there is a lot more scrutiny given the banking failures that we saw earlier this year and just the tightening of the capital markets in general. The unicorn failures of 2023 include Cano, which we knew Cano very well, and it also Babylon, so that was a biggie. And then we even have an AI casualty, all of AI, which was, again, these just really bright lights that people got really excited about. They were real darlings. And then I think the biggest challenge, the biggest thing we see time and time again for these organizations is they haven't built the plane. Not only are they flying it
while they're building
but they're trying to build 25 different planes, and they haven't even nailed down how to make the first plane fly properly. And then there's just all of this greed too, and there's a conflict that comes into place, and then this money just gets blown through so many times. It's really unfortunate, and so I think when we talk future, it's not going to change. The other thing that's interesting is that despite the cost of capital and market sentiment outside of the unicorn, I'm gonna stay in this PE VC space. We still see unicorns growing and unicorns popping up, and so this year we've seen. I thought it was interesting. Walgreens added Pearl Health as a health partnership. They haven't announced it as an acquisition, but they have a health partnership that they've added to their portfolio that has VillageMD and CityMD already in it. I read an interesting fact, which is that Walgreens attributed, so they reported their first loss of 122 years. In 122-year history, they never reported a loss until this quarter. And they attributed 50% of the $3 billion net loss that they announced. They attributed 50% of it to the VillageMD, CityMD portfolio. Now,
no kidding.
People have said
whoopsie.
that. Well, people have said, oh, that was wrongly, like
wrongly
the way they did it. They attributed these like
if
recurring
loss,
fees.
Then you throw everything but the kitchen sink out there,
blame
and it's all
something. You gotta blame something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But we all know how this gold. So the medical group acquisition gold rush is what people call it. And what's interesting is we've seen all these great organizations that were just beloved, like VillageMD and Oak Street. Cano was one of them, and then they get acquired, and they don't seem to produce the kind of yield. Again, these big organizations are buying them to grow top line, to have these provider assets. And I think, Justin, you've talked about this a lot, is unless we get to the virtual care, unless we have a different way to deliver the care that's more efficient, they're not going to turn these things into money printing machines anytime soon, because they haven't been profitable. And it gets back to the whole hamster wheel of fee for service and payment transformation that's needed, right?
Right. And in 2023, back to kind of the earlier component, these entities were also impacted by the fact that we were in an environment of free money for a long period of time, right?
Yes.
Investments
Yes.
were flowing, and they weren't necessarily being vetted to the extent that when money tightens, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, we got to look a little bit closer on some of this stuff. Yeah. And so I think that also impacted these entities, where you're now being scrutinized under a much tighter financial, situation. And that's where, I guess the rock that gets lifted up and you're seeing like all the stuff that was kind of underneath, that happens when the financial conditions tighten.
And then everybody always says, well, we learned our lesson the last time.
Nope,
and
nobody
ever does. And nothing ever, absolutely. And so, then in the same medical group gold rush, you have CVS with Oak Street, which, again, $510 million loss in 2022 for Oak Street, but CVS still acquired them. And then, the thing I know I'll be a bit controversial in saying this, but one of the ones that disturbs me the most is the potential acquisition of ChenMed by Walmart. This really upsets me. I am a fangirl of ChenMed. I am a self-proclaimed fangirl of the ChenMed approach. They're kind of like a national treasure to me. And it just terrifies me to think about Walmart at the helm. And I understand, I could sit and whiteboard the beauty of what it could be. I really could. But unfortunately, I'm you. Are you?
I know, I am. Initially, because I'm now thinking like
I want to have Dr. Chris Chen or Gordon on the show, by the way.
Yeah, that would be great.
Plug to the Chens.
I thought you said
please come on.
People have access to either one of them through their online application, Like, to be able to marry this with
But is Walmart capable of actually like respect? And maybe that's where maybe we'll get lucky and
that's right,
and the Chin family will defend the org. They'll say this can't happen unless the integrity of the model, because it is at the core.
Or they just go on and create something again. Right? Meaning, like, all right.
I know, but that's sad.
I know, but it's what happens in our industry, right? Like you sell out.
And that's my cynicism.
So I'd be happy. I'm optimistic. I'm not convinced it's going to look anything like it have the personal touch.
It happens all over the industry. A company has a great idea. They build a great model. Yes. They get popular. And then United buys them. Yep. Or somebody, they cash out. And then they go do something else.
I know, but I don't want that. I want All right. Well, so to close out my unicorn talk,
BP2's up for sale.
I think no, we're not. There's no BP2 for sale. So I think 2024 will bring us another class of failed unicorns. It will inevitably include a tech-enabled company, and I think probably it could include some sell-offs of this medical group gold rush, and I think there's likely going to be a sell-off of health plans. Like, I think we're going to see another round of jockeying. We're already seeing announcements of it, of the big health plan players that we thought were pretty stable. I think those puzzle pieces are starting to shift again. And I think 2024, we're going to see a very different picture of the health plan landscape.
And we should track.
I'm sorry, we're not supposed to be.
We should track these 2023s too.
Yeah. Sorry, I got ahead of myself there, Justin.
Those that turn around.
I got ahead of myself, but I did tee up mergers and acquisitions for you well.
Right. So mergers and acquisitions in 2023. So again, the landscape, hospital margins are continuing to come under pressure, and mergers picked up pace across the U.S. this year in the hospital space. The interesting thing is the financial challenges of the last 2 years have been apparent, and one striking metric for the third quarter. Over 1/3 of the announced transactions involved a party for which financial distress was cited as a driver for the transactions. That's like well above historical benchmarks. So it's just
we know health systems are struggling in hospital. I mean, we know this.
So you've got forced marriages that are really happening because of the financial distress.
Interesting.
But across the industry as a whole, M&A activity is actually at its lowest in 3 years and over 40% below 2021 levels. So, you've got hospitals who are struggling. They're coming together through financial distress, but more broadly, people are not looking to merge at the levels that they were during when the economy was better.
And do you think it goes back to the cost of capital?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And just the tightening of the market.
The tightening of the market. Perhaps the biggest headline grabber when it comes to mergers and acquisitions was Kaiser acquiring Geisinger. Now that still has to go through through regulatory approval, but billions have been committed to the deal. If it is consummated, the two systems will create a nonprofit that will look to add 5 or 6 more systems nationally over the next 5 years. You also have the Optum acquisition of Crystal Run Healthcare, a network of nearly 400 providers in New York. Like you were just mentioning, Dave, we've got bigger players who are picking. They're not these mega acquisitions that were happening, mergers previously, but it's smaller scale physician.
More like regional players.
Yeah, and they're competing in a small market, and some of the bigger players are like, they're taking some market share, so let's just buy them.
Yep. So that's the background on mergers and acquisitions.
Lots of new CMS models. So I think, to me, the second half of 2023 has been like this barrage of new, like a flurry of activity on the CMS front as it relates to new models around payment transformation, right? Supporting it, trying to address different components of it. This is an area that I kind of like you, Justin, like, I'm optimistic on this. I feel good about what CMS is doing. I know that we always want to really critique CMS, but I think I appreciate that they're trying, I guess, right?
And they're putting out some good
and they're doing it
models,
quickly. So we've got 2022 was really chaotic with the DCE disruption. I mean, originally we started 2022 thinking that DCE was going to become a national program, and then all of a sudden now DC is going to go away, and then they announced, okay, we're actually going to sunset it and rename it, create a new program that looks exactly like it, except addresses some of the components that the political constituents were really up in arms about, and they renamed it ACO REACH. And so then the nice thing was it did allow a number of organizations enter the program because the program was closed. Program's closed again, ACO REACH.
I wish they would open that back up.
I know there's a lot of interest.
That's the one thing I would say. There's
that's a good point.
I mean, again, I understand the political reasons behind it, and but
there are a lot of people that would like to be part of that program.
Yep.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some great organizations that would do well.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just on the cusp. There's other areas, and just to have it as an opportunity.
Well, and then it puts them in a really bad position because when they decide they do want to play, then the only way they can do it is by acquiring something. So then they have to acquire something in distressed.
Yep.
So then they're starting in a program at this really disadvantaged position, and then it just disrupts the program.
Why am I doing it?
Exactly. Anyway, so maybe if CMS at least took the people that are taking, if 3 people exit, at least let 3 people enter, right?
Yeah.
It's can we at least keep the number of seats the same? But and
idea.
so then there you go. Maybe CMS will take my
join
idea.
the executive call.
I should tell them that idea. So the guy there. So the couple of new programs, I won't spend a whole bunch of time on them. So I want to leave time to talk through the rest of this. But we've got the guide model, which is it's a dementia experience program, and it's really to improve the dementia care experience, and it's a DCP is the guide model, and it's really to give primary care physicians the financial support to be able to deliver the kind of care that they need to. We've talked about time, right? One of the most recent episodes we recorded, we talked about the need for providers to have more time with their patients. This program, I mean, I modeled it out easily $75,000 for a primary care practice with, I think it was like 40 lives, 40 dementia patients in the panel. They could be looking at $75,000. The first year they'd be looking at $175,000 because there's a $100,000 advanced payment that you can get for this model. And to me, the stakes aren't even that high. That RFA is open and it's closing at the end of January. Then we have the Making Care primary model again, which is a multi-payer model. Unfortunately, this is where they've limited to states. We have a lot of people that we know that are really interested in this program, but they're not in the states that were selected to be part of the Making Care primary program. And then the most recent announcement, and unfortunately, I've talked to a few people with this. I was really intrigued by this. Is CMS is trying to create a way for other states to do what Maryland is doing, right? Maryland is an all-payer model. The CMS is trying to create an avenue for other states to follow suit. I think the funding is abysmal. So they're saying to and I know states will do it because there are a number of states that have wanted to do this for a long time, and now they have a reason. So it's called the AHEAD model. It's states advancing all-payer health equity approaches and development. That's the acronym AHEAD, because we need way more acronyms.
It's got to be an acronym for all programs.
Models. So it's a really long model. It's 10 to 12 years, depending on the pre-implementation. But the sad part is that you only get funding for the first 5.5 years, and it's only $2 million a year. So it's $12 million for a state to become an all-payer model. So they have to become responsible for rate setting.
We know how complicated Maryland is.
It's so complicated. You
nothing.
Can't fund a new division of the state to take that on for $2 million a year.
No.
You could, it makes me sad because I think there's some really, to me, we all talk about value-based care payment transformation, which is very much needed. But if a state were to take ownership of being an all-payer system, that also is an impetus for some really big change. So, Dave?
Artificial intelligence in healthcare has really become a thing
your robot
in
thing?
2023. We've talked about
DB.
Okay,
that's it.
Yeah, it's on DB. We've talked a lot about AI in healthcare in previous podcasts, but we haven't talked about Sam Altman. You know Sam Altman?
Yeah, I'm really excited you're going to talk about him because I just saw a news flash about him. Actually, I listened to Bloomberg the entire ride over yesterday.
Well, what's going on? We'll let Dave talk about it. But
we should get him as a guest.
Right.
No, he's
Why
like
not?
he's the godfather of generative AI.
Are you
right?
fanboying Sam Altman?
I mean, he was the CEO of OpenAI and GPT. But he's been in the headlines recently, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
he was
just
fired.
a little bit.
He was fired from the board of OpenAI. This is
Big
weird.
deal. I mean,
this is weird. But then he accepted a position with Microsoft, and then Microsoft helped him work his way back into his position at OpenAI.
Yep.
So
because they have so much invested.
Yes, exactly. No one really knows. I don't think anyone really knows what happens, but it seems like it's linked to a report that he was putting commercial products and fundraising goals before the nonprofit's mission. Remember, ChatGPT is supposed to be a nonprofit open source.
But yet the for-profit Microsoft got him back in.
That's why it's a head scratcher.
Well, it's not a head scratcher.
No.
There's a really interesting agenda underneath it all.
You know how a lot of people are scared that AI could, eliminate jobs. It could get real scary.
Yep.
He admitted it. He admitted it himself early, and he said I'm a little scared that ChatGPT creation, and warned that it could eliminate a lot of jobs. So the debate on AI and whether it'll make our lives easier or will wholesale eliminate large sectors of our society is largely being played out behind closed doors.
That's the scary part.
Right.
No, it is the scared part. Scary, not scared.
Right.
Yeah, and we're also in a position where Microsoft and Google will be the Coke and Pepsi of AI, right?
Right.
And what does that
with
power
zero
mean?
transparency?
Right. Because I've never actually have you used ChatGPT?
No, I should.
I've used Bard.
My son,
Everybody does this before they talk about AI. Like every talk I ever hear of somebody giving that, I went on to the AI and I got the following. I haven't done it yet.
No,
I go to the Google one, Bard.
That's what it's named?
Bard. B-A-R-D. It might still be.
That's the other thing about the unicorns.
Apparently, it could pass the board now, or they're getting it close, enough for something that I'm sorry.
The names are supposed to get weirder. That's the other thing. The unicorn names are supposed to get weirder.
Okay.
Oh no, I have to wait to say my predictions.
Yes. Well, meanwhile, the government agencies are trying to grapple with the speed of the new technologies. Food and Drug Administration, for example, released new guidance in April proposing an approach to ensure that AI and machine learning enabled devices can be safely and rapidly modified in response to new data. And I know this is not related, but the whole strike, the actors' strike.
Yep.
One of the big holdups in that
Screen Actors Guild.
One of the big holdups was AI and whether or not.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
They want to be able to get paid for like when they're used in AI.
Or that actors and actresses actually are just AI generated. That's what they're most concerned about.
The studios.
But after them.
No, not even that. Their likeness maybe, but it's more like actually you don't need actors and actresses anymore. We just have AI generated.
I thought it was more about scripts and writers bringing scripts that were AI generated, and the studios are like, you didn't do the work. Why should we pay you?
I think there's a bunch of worries just across across the spectrum.
Fran Drescher.
Like I said,
interestingly, I'm going to be Justin for a second. Interesting side note: Fran Drescher has been the huge voice for the guild.
For the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't even know what she was doing anymore. And she is and it's so funny because when you think about but when you think about her personality as an
what was the show that she was on where she was
the nanny or something?
No, well, I know she was. Was she? No, she was just like a nanny. You're right. She was a nanny for the kids, and then.
But she was very
we're dating
she was
ourselves.
very bulldogish in her personality, and so it's completely fitting. It's very apropos that she is that representative, and it just sort of it's sat sort of interesting to me that she was portrayed that way in the roles, her fictitious role, and now she has turned into.
All right, Dave's put us down a rabbit hole here.
I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry.
And wait. All right, I'm done. Or the blah 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 button.
So let's.
We're gonna wrap up with
predictions. Yes, predictions for 2024. Ellen, we'll start with you. And
so do I get to go back if somebody says something that makes me think of something good?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
There's no rules.
Okay. I don't think there's going to be anything seismic. Although after our most recent podcast, one could say that what we talked about could happen in 2024. I think we talked about employer-sponsored health plans completely shifting to being sort of a one-size-fits-all cafeteria approach, I think we're more than a year away from that. I don't disagree that maybe we're really talking about it at this time next year, but it feels too seismic. Now, I do think how that plays out will be influenced heavily by the outcome of the election. So we have the election outcome next year, which I do not want to talk about. And if the predecessor comes back into office, I think Obamacare is going to be front and center.
They couldn't do it last time. They should be able to do it. There's not a chance in the world.
All right. I don't.
It's possible. She's predicting.
Right, you're predicting.
I'm just saying it. I didn't say it's going away. I just said it's going to be very much in everyone's face with a very different level of, I think, sort of aggressive action.
Yeah, because a lot of people are like, yeah, get rid of that.
Exactly.
But they don't have anything to replace it with.
Right,
so
exactly.
So that's one thing. I think when we talked about, we had an episode recently and we talked about the diet drugs. Yep. Ozempic, is that one of them? I forget the names, but
Wegovy or something.
Yeah. I forget, but and they have like a pharmaceutical name, a category, but they're just going to skyrocket in popularity. Use is going to, and then I think next year, maybe by the end of the year, we'll start to hear some horrific side effects. Maybe it's the following year, but they will be used. They will be like a big topic of like, we are going to use these. I would love it if we saw a big tech surprise. So if we took one of the big techs, I would love it to be Apple, for example, that Apple makes a bigger play and bigger, more formal play in the healthcare space. And as you might imagine, I would love it if it involved wearables. I'm just, again,
shocking.
I can be Susie Sunshine and, and go there. And then lastly, again, these are more my aspirational predictions. The last thing would be maybe we get a little bit more movement or more support of the food is medicine movement. It becomes a little less grassroots, a little bit more mainstream. And we start talking about food as medicine as more a fundamental of good healthcare. And we see more traction there next year. So,
nice.
Dave?
First and foremost, I'm going to grow an actual mullet in 2024.
Can you, though? Will your hair support that aspiration?
It's going to have to get glued on.
I said it was a prediction.
Okay. Well, I can predict I will not be doing a mullet.
My 2024 prediction is pretty simple and won't surprise you. I still think, even though there are some aspects of AI that are scary to some people, I think it's going to get reined in enough so that it has a meaningful place in the healthcare industry. And
I hope so.
And it does not replace the number of human jobs that some think it might, and will become the tool of choice for certain aspects of the healthcare industry.
Very good. All right. So with mine, a couple of things. I see the different behavioral health models that are being rolled out across the country starting to come online on a wider scale next year. I think it's good. There are different flavors that we need to, we've worked with several of them, right? And the behavioral health space is at an inflection point, like primary care and other areas, but I think 2024 is going to be a big year for those models.
Agreed.
I also think we're going to be in for more of the same when it comes to layoffs, when it comes to just the overall healthcare sector shrinking right now until the Fed decides that it's going to lower interest rates, right? So we're at a pretty high point right now. There's not a lot of investment activity going on. Borrowing money is expensive, right? So we're not going to see the kind of animal spirits that were there just a few years ago, with all these different investments and, basically going into areas.
It's the valuations. I think that's part of it too. Yeah. It's not just the investments, it's the valuations that come before it's like, really, are you really worth that much?
Right. So, I think that slowdown continues and maybe something happens in the economy where all of a sudden, there's a shock of some sort. Maybe it's more bank failures, whatever it may be. The interest rates will come down, and then things will open up a little bit more when it comes to borrowing and going back to.
But do you think that'll happen?
More appetite for risk,
but not in 2024.
I do think something will happen in 2024 that will cause
soften things.
Yes, that will cause.
Interesting.
Well, because I mean, our long-term debt trajectory as a country.
Oh, that's
is
just terrifying.
Right. But at these higher interest rates, we can't afford it.
Oh
so,
boy.
Yes.
Okay, you're getting the boring button pushed on you.
So,
great discussion.
One of these days, I want to talk about the 2024 podcast guests we want to have. Maybe we'll do that in January.
Yeah.
We'll call out
Sam Altman.
You want Sam Altman? I want Dr. Christopher Chin.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have anybody on my wish list yet, but
okay. I mean, I have a lot of people on my wish list.
Can we get Conan O'Brien on?
You could. Well, I would love to have.
I'd love to have Conan.
So if we're gonna go there, then I would love to have Peter Attia.
We got to go on his
Sona
podcast too.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you for listening.
I'm Ellen Brown.
I'm Dave Pavlik.
And I'm Justin Politi. We are the partners at BP2 Health, your best chance for real change. As you can tell, we could talk all day about healthcare. Drop us a line through our site, bp2health.com.
The Reverse Mullet podcast is produced by MMG Studios in Tampa, Florida with Victoria and Gunther.